Motivation is a sudden spark to start a project, but it quickly burns out. The heavy, mechanical gears of discipline maintain the momentum. Asked to identify the single most important principle of success out of 1,000 rules, early 20th century author Elbert Hubbard pointed to one specific trait. He defined self-discipline as the ability to execute the necessary work at the exact right time, completely independent of whether you emotionally feel like doing it or not. Relying on emotional highs leads to uneven results. Long-term achievement requires the mechanical consistency of self-discipline as the absolute baseline. Eventually, almost everyone hits a plateau. You reach a ceiling where the knowledge, the daily routines, and the social circles that brought you to your current level are mathematically incapable of taking you any higher. Researchers Thomas Stanley and William Danko spent years surveying over 500 millionaires. When asked why they succeeded while their peers continued to struggle, these individuals admitted they did not possess superior intelligence or elite academic degrees. This chart isolates the exact metrics they credited for their wealth. Over 85% of those surveyed attributed their breakthrough solely to a willingness to outwork their competition. A life plateau is a behavioral problem. Solving it requires the disciplined execution of new habits, regardless of inherent intelligence. Getting off that plateau requires auditing the daily routines of top performers and adopting their habits. The first step is carving out just 2 extra hours a day for deep, uninterrupted work. This diagram illustrates the raw arithmetic of a standard week. Every human gets 168 hours. A standard job aggressively cuts away 40 of those hours. Deduct 56 hours for a full night's sleep and another 21 hours for biological maintenance, eating, showering, and commuting. You are still left with over 50 unallocated free hours. That hidden surplus is physically larger than your entire work week. Stagnation persists because focus is misallocated, not because the hours don't exist. To reclaim those hours, you have to perform daily triage. Identify strictly the top 3 most critical tasks for your day, and ignore all other noise until they are completed. This demand for intense, singular focus traces back 2,000 years to Gautama Buddha, who instructed his followers to practice absolute presence in every action. The modern application is strict. When you speak, speak. When you listen, listen. When you work, you work. 0 extra tabs, 0 phones. This discipline extends to your identity. When you deliberately dress for the role you want, you use your wardrobe as a psychological tool to reinforce a higher standard of professionalism. This signals a departure from your plateau to both your brain and your environment. Unbroken focus in your daily tasks and deliberate intent in your personal presentation create the specific environment where extraordinary breakthroughs occur. This same rigid framework dictates long-term financial freedom. Refusing to spend money triggers the exact same psychological friction as forcing yourself into deep work. You build the necessary neural pathways for restraint by establishing a baseline rule: save 10% of your monthly income. Even starting with just 1% forces the necessary behavioral change. This line graph of compounding interest tracks what happens when you invest a modest 1,500 rupees a month at a 15% return. The trajectory is painfully slow and flat at first, but then it suddenly spikes exponentially. By retirement age, that small monthly deposit turns into millions. The real discipline is the absolute refusal to withdraw those funds prematurely. Wealth accumulates through the compound effect of decades of behavioral restraint. So why subject yourself to the daily pain of deep focus, strict budgeting, and relentless hard work? Generating massive wealth and high productivity without underlying happiness is a failure of a life strategy. True fulfillment relies on 5 pillars: health, relationships, meaningful work, financial freedom, and self-actualization. Each demands its own form of regulation. Maintaining your body or managing your reactions in a relationship requires the same impulse control as a work schedule. Discipline acts as the architectural framework that supports these 5 pillars simultaneously. That 5th pillar, self-actualization, is the deeply ingrained psychological need to reach your absolute maximum potential. Looking in the mirror and realizing there is a massive, unbridgeable gap between the person you currently are and the distant, unreachable person you could have been is the ultimate source of misery. Self-discipline is the exact price of admission required to close that gap, ensuring your daily reality finally matches your ultimate potential.